Hello, my name is Benjamin.
And I'm Amanda.
Welcome to Seasoned Readings.
What is seasoned reading? Well, I'm a longtime romance reader, and Ben is a newbie. We're reading together for the first time A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas.
That's right.
So I'm going to ask you, Ben, what did you know about this book before we started reading?
Not much. I knew that it was a fantasy novel with some romance, if you
Okay,
would. Um, and honestly, that's about it. I didn't know
that's
much
it.
going into it. Yeah, I didn't know a whole lot. I know that there was some spicy scenes,
Right.
possibly, and the level to which I'm not sure. And I think that's part of what we're going to be talking about is help me understand where this lies and it kind of introduced me to the world of
Romance, new adult
ro
romance. Yeah.
romantic fantasy
Mhm.
novels, something I have no idea about
Okay.
at all.
Um, Now, I know we'll talk more about this in our next upcoming episode, but also what is then your experience with fantasy? What is your favorite fantasy novel prior to this?
Favorite fantasy novel? Man, that's rough.
I know. I will let you also have video games since I know you have a very strong video game background. So, video game or novel?
That I can work with. I'd have to say I think my favorite, it's also my favorite game, but also my favorite fantasy. It spans kind of archaic fantasy and like futuristic is like Chrono Trigger, which spans like these ages of different fantasy, and it's very cool.
Okay.
I think the most recent series I've read, and also the series of video games I played was The Witcher, which we'll talk about more, I'm sure. Which I think really does fantasy pretty well. Um, I read the entire Harry Potter series,
Okay.
and even though and it was good, I liked it. It's not my favorite. I'm not like a huge
It's like a
fan,
young
but
adult
yeah,
fantasy.
believe it or not, I that's the time frame I read it because that's when
Yeah.
it came out when I was
Hmm.
a young lad, if you could believe it.
You were
That's
young once.
yeah, maybe not that young. Um, but I also remember like in high school reading like Greek mythology and things like that,
Hmm.
and really enjoying a lot of that stuff. Um, but yeah, I think it's hard to nail down one off the top of my head. I've never been one to really pick favorites and say like this is my definitive one,
Right.
but yeah, I think those are the pretty good start of where I
Yeah,
get my
no,
background
that's
from.
yeah, exactly. I think
Yeah.
it's nice to kind of know where we're both coming from. So I kind of already said that I'm a long time romance reader.
Well,
Honestly,
not just romance though. You also have a
I've
big
always been that.
background of
Yeah,
yeah,
like
fantasy and other stuff.
yes, no. I was always a reader as a kid. So I absolutely devoured Harry Potter. And Tolkien from a very young age. My dad introduced me to The Hobbit when I was 11 or 12.
I remember absorbing a lot of that through different avenues, even though I never read Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit or any of Tolkien's stuff. For whatever reason, I never actually I think I got a hold of the books once and they were so old and moldy that I couldn't read them. Like my allergies were getting so bad, so
Oh
I had to
no.
put them down. But I watched the movies and there was like, all the animated stuff as a kid that I
Yeah.
watched, especially like The Hobbit. There's that one animated Hobbit
That
movie that
awful animated version,
yeah,
yes. Uh-huh.
it was
I read the book before I ever saw that. So I was
good for
like,
you.
oh, this is bad. No, I actually when they announced that they were doing Lord of the Rings, that was when my dad gifted me my own copy of The Hobbit for the first time. Because he had read sections of it to me as I was growing up and some
That's
of the
cool.
short stories.
Yeah.
um I have it somewhere and I'll pull it out I'm sure at some point to show it off. But it was just these short little really fantasy based knights and dragons
Hmm.
that Tolkien wrote. um and then I got read the Hobbit for the first time prior to seeing the movies Lord of the Rings and then reading those later. Once I was older and I could definitely really unpack
Grasp.
those.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I also can't have a hard time picking a favorite when it comes to fantasy. Because like I did grow up with Harry Potter. Like
Hmm.
I was I when that book hit, I was like right at that right sweet spot age because it released in 98. And I want to say I bought my first copy with money that I got for my ninth birthday.
Nice. That's cool.
And I bought this tiny little paperback because it was what I could afford and just devoured it and went and saved money that I think I got at like Easter or something. Then for book two, which was a little paperback because it was what I could afford to buy,
Hmm.
devoured it. And then at that point, my parents were like, okay, like she's invested. So then
Yeah,
they bought me all of the books and I have all of the first printings, hardcovers.
very
Um,
cool.
I have a love of Harry Potter that is a little
Rivals
stronger.
rivals
Yeah.
most.
I mean, I'm right there with them. I mean, I have a
Sure.
Harry Potter tattoo. You know, I definitely still to this day, I went on a vacation just to do a Harry Potter thing. So,
I would do that.
so that's
Even not as
just,
like a like even as like a huge fan of Harry Potter, I would do something like that for sure.
yeah.
For sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a little bit of who we are.
Hmm.
So the first episode of seasoned readings will be dropping on YouTube, where you found this. Um, and we're going to break down the first four chapters as well as go into a little bit deeper dive of our history with, fantasy and romance.
Hmm. Check us out, like, subscribe,
Hit the
and
bell
view. Yeah.
because
Do
we're
those things.
do those things. Millennial YouTubers, man.
Right, yeah.
All right. Thank you for listening. And we hope you join us on this journey of reading these books for the first time.